Hello everybody, this is the first of our live events for Pearson's new flexible course formula. Before we begin today, I'm going to talk a little bit about our housekeeping. So the session is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording along with your certificate and access to the formula sample pack. And you'll get this within 72 hours of the session. So that's the first bit of business for the morning. Welcome everybody. So today we're going to be carrying out the first of 3 steps. Today, we're going to be learning about formulas, building blocks. And once you're complete with your whistle-stop tour of formula, we'll be going, you'll be able to join the experience sessions and experience an online lesson with our authors, Lindsay Warwick and Billy Jago. And you can talk to your Pearson representative about registering for those sessions on the 7th, 8th and 15th of May. Once you've experienced our live lessons using our formula materials, you can then join a methodology session. And this methodology session will be run by our author, Lindsay Warwick. And this will be run the sort of end of May, 19th and 21st of May. So that's our series of events. So what are we talking about today? So here's a little overview of the direction of travel for today. I'll be talking you through the basics, the first set of building blocks. And then I'll give a little bit of evidence to support the bold claim that we take a fresh approach to topics. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. I'll go through the building blocks that we use to create courses for each of our different scenarios and how you customize those to create your own formula for exam success. So over the last few years, we've had quite a lot of common themes coming from teachers about what their needs are for exam preparation. And there's always a variety. The need for a short course, not just practice tests, giving an alternative to your current exam preparation. And also getting tired of the same kind of topic-based approach to courses. And also making sure that the course serves both versions of the exam, the for schools and the standard versions. So it's very clear that exam preparation comes in a variety of formats, lots of course lengths and different intensities depending on the specific needs of the students. So we identified that were kind of 3 key features that we needed to address. Flexibility, the ability to adapt the course for different course length and specific student needs. Something that's fresh, something that isn't just the same topic-based approach that other courses use, but also maintains the focus that you need on the exam, as that's the main goal for most of the students. So we created Formula, and Formula is a 3-level course at B1 preliminary, B2 first and C1 advanced, and it's suitable for both versions of the exam, the for schools at B1 and B2 as well as the standard versions. So Formula provides teachers and learners with the building blocks they need for shorter and more extensive courses. It has 2 core components, the course book and the exam trainer, and you can use those separately or together depending on the length of the course and the language and the skills that the students need to develop. Formula includes a range of resources for more extensive courses or specific learner needs that you can use to adapt or extend the core course. So you can deliver a more extensive language course that meets the needs of non-exam students too. Formula helps you master those exam skills step by step, So the course book includes a fold-out exam file, which takes you through exam tasks in bite-sized chunks. And the exam trainer includes a test approach. So students are building those skills step by step and learning those strategies inside out. It has what we consider a very dynamic approach to units and topics, which I'll go through in a bit more detail later. We have that very common feeling that students feel that they're moving through units very slowly, particularly on longer courses where you can be using the same unit for multiple lessons. So we've tried to change that, and I'll tell you about that later. Formula also has exam preparation for the print and digital user. So you can get your resources both in your typical prints component, but also print and digital bundles, or your digital only. We also have our digital resources accessible via the app. Getting a couple of questions about digital, being able to use the materials for online courses, and we'll cover that point shortly. So I hope I answer your question then. Finally, we've also made a lot of effort to try and make sure that the course is accessible for dyslexic students. So we can't change the exam, but we can provide students with more support to tackle some of those exam tasks. And we've also provided support to teachers to help them scaffold and support students in a way that makes it easier for them to approach those specific exam tasks, and how they can adapt those for dyslexic students, as well as having all of our assessment package has dyslexia friendly tests as well. So looking at using the materials in blended or fully digital classes, we have our components which are print and digital. So we've got our course and interactive ebooks that come with digital resources and the app, as well as the exam trainer. And we have with and without key versions. Our digital bundles also for our course book, for our exam trainer, and they're also with and without key. So our with key versions for the interactive ebooks and for the print books include a smart key. So you don't just find out whether the answer is right or wrong, but you find out why it's right or wrong. For teachers, we have our teacher's book with presentation tool and digital resources. The front of class tool is fully interactive for the course book and has static pages for the exam trainer with embedded audio. We have our planning mode, which includes teacher's notes as well as teaching mode. There is easy navigation for either following the book pages or the lesson flow. And we've got scoring and timer tools for teacher-led activities. Our digital resources help focus on those specific needs for each individual class. So if you want some more exam focus, we've got about the exam videos. If you want more extensive grammar focus, we've got editable grammar presentations that you can use in class to recycle and consolidate or present. We've got a range of photocopyable activities, 2 grammar and 2 vocabulary per unit. And we've also got grammar practice activities available on the app. And all of our digital resources are on the Pearson English portal. For courses that have a more extensive writing focus or speaking focus, we've got speaking and writing success criteria that you can share with students. And for those where you want to check progress, we have the full test package with unit tests, progress tests, and 2 complete practice tests with the dyslexia friendly versions available in Word and PDF. So those are the basics. I'm going to move on now to start talking about our 2 core components. So for students, we have our 2 components which you choose depending on the course length. We have our exam trainer and we have the course book with fold out exam file. And this comes with our interactive ebook and digital resources and app. For teachers, we've got our teacher's book digital resources, and our presentation tool. So depending on the course length, you can choose the course, the component that you want to use, depending on whether you've got a short, medium, or long course. So for shorter courses, we use the Exam Trainer or the Exam Trainer Interactive ebook. And this is primarily a short course which can be used in class, at home, or for self-study. It's full colour and can be used in 3 different ways. It uses a test-teach-test approach, and it's in the order of the exam and includes a full practice test. The course book, which is for medium to longer courses, can be used from around 50 hours onwards, and each lesson covers a part of each of the exam papers, includes exam focus and authentic exam practice, and has this fold-out exam file at the back of the book, which we'll take a look at in more detail shortly. And we know both of those come with our ebooks with and without key. So to look at the Exam Trainer in a bit more detail, I've mentioned it can be used in 3 ways: as a standalone component in a short course. It can be used in combination with the course book for homework, or it can be used for self-study. It's not a secondary component like a workbook. It's on an equal level, and you would choose that component if it is the main component for the course length that you have for your students. Its structure follows the order of the exam. So it starts at reading part 1 and moves through to speaking part 4. And importantly, it uses this test-teach-test approach. So each section starts with a mini practice task, reflection on that part of the exam, followed by extensive focus on strategies and skills for improving performance in the exam. And that's followed by the final test section, which is a full-length authentic style exam task. This is followed then by a complete practice test and support using the digital resources and app. So moving on to the course book. The course book has 8 units. Each unit covers a part of each paper, includes an exam focus and strategies for improving performance, and a full exam task. The fold-out exam file at the back of the book includes bite-sized exam information and Are You Ready checklists, and I'll show you a little bit more detail on that shortly. Then we have review sections every 2 units, and several sections at the back of the book which aim to focus on vocabulary, grammar, and writing. We have our vocabulary file, which includes our word lists, which collate our topic and lexical vocabulary. A grammar file, which includes a full reference for the grammar covered within each unit, as well as a full page of practice. And a writing file, which includes models, exam tasks, and useful language. And again, that comes with support of the digital resources and our app. So now to look a little bit more at how those components, that first building block, can be used across the different course lengths. So we know if you're using a short course, you'd be using the Exam Trainer, primarily exam focused. This would be around 20 to 30 hours. Students are probably at level and really looking to build that awareness of the exam and really feel prepared for taking that exam. So that's sort of super intensive at around 30 hours. As you move up to around 50 hours, we'd recommend using the course book. So we describe this as exam focused, but with language revision and consolidation. If students are taking a 50-hour class, their level is probably fairly strong. A lot of grammar won't be new to them. They'll be largely consolidating this as they move through the course. As you move up to around the 80-hour, there's a bigger difference between the current level of the students and the level they need to achieve by the time they take the exam. So we describe this as exam focused, but with language development. So there'd be a lot more language input within the class. And then moving up to the top end, there's really long courses around 100+ hours. We'd be recommending using the course book and the Exam Trainer. And students would really be looking to level up before they take that exam. So now, to honour the bold claim that I made that formula takes a fresh approach to topics. One of the most common complaints that we get when we go out to research new courses is this feeling of topic fatigue. It weighs really heavily on the minds of teachers. I think often we find that when students are on those long courses, it takes so long to get through the units because you're going into so much depth that sometimes there's a lot of moaning and groaning when they turn the page and realise they're still on the environment or still on education a couple of weeks after they started that unit. So we decided to take a different approach for formula. So each level has its own broad theme. B1, its broad theme is senses. B2 first is colours, and C1 advanced is numbers. And the idea is that within each of those broad themes, each unit takes one example of that. And then within the lesson, each lesson takes an angle on that topic. So lessons change topic, lesson by lesson. And this gives a feeling of momentum, progress, and also is a much more authentic exam experience because they would get different topics in the exam. They'd turn the page of the paper and see a different topic. So students need to be prepared for that feeling as well. So let me give you a few examples of how this works in practice. So B1, as I've mentioned, is senses, and Unit 1 is sound. So some of the lesson topics included in this unit related to sound are sound effects, musicals, concerts, silent cafes, noise pollution, languages and communication. So you can see they've all got a connection to sound, but cover some of those different topics, some of those standard topics that you would come across in a typical course. B2, I mentioned that the broad theme is colours. Unit 1 is blue, and some of the topics that are covered are associations with the colour. So we have some linguistic links. Once in a blue moon, which is rare natural phenomenon. We have Frida Kahlo's Casa Azul, which looks at homes. We have out of the blue, things that are surprising. Blue light and the impact on sleep. And something more typical, perhaps, which is the ocean and travelling on holiday. So those are some examples for the B2. Finally, for C1, Unit 1, C1 is numbers. Unit 1 is 1. And some of the topics that are covered are space travel, one small step, travelling alone, going solo, novelists who only wrote one book, one-hit wonders, April the 1st, April Fool's Day, one of a kind, things that are unique in nature, and first impressions and the impact that those have. So you can see that multiple topics are covered within a unit, and we don't lose the coherence really because we collate all of the vocabulary that's covered in our vocabulary file. So students can see what vocabulary they've covered lesson by lesson, both lexically and topic. So you can gather that topic vocabulary across the whole book and be reassured that you're still getting all of the vocabulary for those typical topics. But instead of covering it once, you're coming back to those topics unit by unit and changing lesson by lesson. So we're going to take a look at the course book in a bit more detail now. We've got our C1 advanced level here. We're going to look at Unit 2. I don't know if anyone knows which mountain range this one is, but I can assure you it's K2. This looks at the world around us. Other topics covered in this unit are To Be in Two Minds, which is looking at opinions. Why socks don't come out of the wash in pairs. Apparently, it's a scientific phenomena. The benefits of coming second, looking at sport and psychology. The history of travelling on two wheels, bicycles, looking at history, and doppelgangers. The appearance of this in sociology theory. So those are some examples of Unit 2. And moving on to our approach. So our unit opener, we have 7 lessons. The first lesson is our unit opener, and then we follow this by with 6 different exam focused lessons. Our unit opener is our first vocabulary input, and all of these vocabulary sections are very much focused on chunks of language, real world language, phrasal verbs, collocations, expressions. And this is what we do to kick off the unit and enable some personalisation and discussion. So that's our first vocabulary input. Then we move on to our first reading lesson. And the approach to the lesson is very similar, lesson by lesson. We have 2 or 3 different springboards that take you to different parts of the material in the back of the book, depending on the lesson. Every lesson starts with a springboard to our exam file. Just as a reminder, the exam file is the fold-out booklet in the back of the course book. The exam file, if you can see on the PowerPoint here, is on the right-hand side, the blue page. And here we have, we tried really hard to make sure that we didn't just give another exam reference, but really tried to put ourselves in the shoes of the students. Try not to overwhelm them and give them bite-sized information that they're actually going to read and refer to, but not be overwhelmed. So we give a little bit of information about the task. We tell them how it's scored, how many questions there are, and what is being tested. But we tell them in a way that's approachable for them, not too technical. Then we go on to give them a few steps on how they do it. So what do they need to do before, during, and after the task? And then we have an exam, are you exam ready checklist, so they can have a look at that and see the steps to exam readiness. So students can refer to this the first time they cover that exam part. They can have the fold out exam section open at the same time as the lesson, so they can refer during the lesson itself. And they can refer to that as they come to that exam part, the 2 or 3 times that it's covered during the course. So once you've had a look at the exam file, we come back to the main unit and we have some introductory activities. And then we move on to the exam focus. And the exam focus really draws the students' attention to the specific demands of the exam task in question. And the exam focus provides the basis for the scaffolded activities on the page. Gradually, we'll be giving a worked example and taking students step by step through what they need to do to approach the exam. Depending on how much time you have in class, if you have a longer course, you're probably going to be going into more depth within the class. So you might want to carry out the exam boost activity. The exam boost activity is not essential to the lesson, but it gives students extra sub-skill or extra language work, which is relevant to the exam part. And that's also in the exam file. So students have an extra activity, just giving them that little boost that they might need for the exam. If you don't have time, you can set this for homework and it can be provided as a quick homework for students. Coming back to the main unit, students would carry on with the exam tasks, carry on with the tasks, and then move through to the final exam task. This is a full-length exam task, so each lesson includes a full-length task for students to put into practice the specific focus that they've learnt in that lesson. Following the exam task, we often find that students, some finishing faster than others. So we've created a flexible activity at the bottom of the page called speaking or writing. Students who finished in pairs can carry out the speaking activity. Students who finished individually can carry out the writing task. Or students who need a quick homework, if you want to just set a quick homework off the page, they can carry out the writing task for homework. At the bottom of each lesson are exam trainer page references. So if you're using the combination of components, if you're using the course book in class and the exam trainer for homework, then you might use the exam trainer references to point your students in the direction of what they can do from the exam trainer for homework. So that's the basic structure. Let's go and have a look at some of the rest of the lessons. So the next lesson is reading and use of English, and this is our second vocabulary input for the course. Here we're focusing on use of English, specifically on lexical sets, and we follow the same approach. So we direct students to the exam file. They learn a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the exam. They come back, they understand what the focus is, the exam focus is for that lesson. And depending on class time or course length, you can either do the exam boost in class or set for homework, and then carry on to do that full length exam task. Again, we've got the speaking or writing to provide that flexibility at the end of the lesson for fast finishers. And of course, the exam trainer page references to set for homework if you're using a combination of components. So that's the reading and use of English. We then go on to a listening on the second part of the spread, and it follows the same process. And then we move on to our second reading and use of English, and this time we're looking at grammar input. And this is where we meet our second springboard to the end matter. And this is where we find our grammar file. The grammar file occurs unit by unit. On the left-hand page, we have a full reference giving clear explanation and examples for all of the grammar covered. And on the opposite page, a full page of practice activities. So again, if you've got a longer course and you're presenting and practicing grammar more for students who need to level up, then you'll probably be carrying out this in class. Having a look at the reference, perhaps using our editable grammar PowerPoints, and carrying out some of this practice just to check everybody's got it. If you're doing that shorter course, maybe 50 hours, and really the grammar's just a revision, you might just give a quick reference to this and ask students to do that for homework and really focus on the specifics of the exam part. And again, the rest of the lesson carries on in the same familiar way that we've seen on the previous lessons. So that's reading and use of English and our grammar focus. On the next page is the speaking, and it follows exactly the same process. Having a look at the exam file, understanding what the exam focus is, and working through and building the language and skills that they need to do well in the speaking exam. Moving on now to our final lesson, and this is our writing lesson. Here we have our final two springboards to the back of the book, and here we have our springboard to the vocabulary file. The vocabulary file collates all of the topic and lexical vocabulary from the unit. It includes some pronunciation focus and also vocabulary practice for each of those items. It also includes a vocabulary boost, which is an extension of one of the categories within the word list. The second springboard is to our writing file, and this includes an example question, a good sample answer, and this is annotated to highlight the key features of this particular writing genre. We give some exam help and also useful language, providing students with that language they can transfer to any exam question for that particular genre. So moving back to the writing lesson, we take a process approach to writing. We know that our students, particularly younger students, really struggle with focusing on exactly what the question is asking them to do. So we take great efforts to focus on the exam question, lots of practice at generating ideas for those specific tasks. Moving on to planning the activity as well, essential for creating a good final answer. And then going on to create that final answer and also looking at how that they can improve it once they've completed it. If you're using the interactive ebooks, both the planning activities and the full length written tasks, you can do writing into the free writing activities within the interactive ebook. The students can download their plans or download their full answers and share those with you as teachers for feedback. Or they can be used in obviously lots of different ways, peer correction, and the kind of usual editing tasks that you might carry out as a follow-up to focus on improvement. Last but not least are our review sections. The review sections are every 2 units, and our aim is to consolidate the language, the vocabulary and the grammar that's been covered in the previous units. And all of these are targeted use of English activities. So I think in the B2 and C1, we have like an extra 6 use of English papers. So teachers are always asking us to provide extra use of English. So hopefully you've got enough examples there to give them students plenty of practice. There's a little question here about the exam boost, which I will just recap on before we move on. So the exam boost and the exam file, they're all part of the same back of book booklet. This is the fold out booklet at the back. So for each part of each paper, you have 1 page, which gives you bite-sized information, a reference about how to approach the exam. And on the opposite page are all of our exam boost activities. There are signposts within the lesson to tell the students when to carry out each of those different exam boost activities. And they're directed there up to 4 times during the book to carry out some extra sub-skill work or linguistic work, which is relevant to that particular part. What we found is that when we were trying to cover some of the extra sub-skills and language areas that are relevant to the exam parts, there were some little bits and pieces that we just couldn't find the right place for. And giving them that boost meant that we could really make sure that we cover everything that students need to cover at the right time and in the right moment. So those are our exam boosts. So moving on to talk about the exam trainer. So just to recap, the exam trainer is our short course or self-study, or the can be used in combination with the course book. So it can function as your workbook idea if you're using the course book in class, and the course book has the page references to the exam trainer, so you know what to set your students for homework to revise and consolidate what's been covered in class. The exam trainer is unique in its approach. It's in the order of the exam, and it has this test, teach, test approach. So the first part of each section is test, and this is what you can see here. We have a little introduction, which is called about the task. It gives bite-sized information as a lead into the task without overwhelming students with too much information. This is followed by a how did you do, followed by a practice task. This, in most cases, actually a full-length task, but in some cases a little bit reduced. And this gives students their taster of how to do the task. This is followed by a how did you do section, which helps students understand where they are in their learning. And it gets the students thinking about what's expected of them in the exam and what it's testing. Moving on to the next section, and this is teach. The teach sections, they vary in length depending on the complexity of the exam part. So for example, speaking part 1 will have fewer pages than B2 first reading part 5, for example, which is really complex and has lots of strategies and skills that you need to go through. So the teach sections are a part by part, guiding students through in a systematic and step-by-step way, building on each skill from this kind of the easier ones, moving on to the more complex as you move through the material. We also include an activity which is called the Speaking Boost. This is discussion activities that students can complete in pairs or groups that link to the specific topics that are covered in the exam and help to revise and consolidate key language, key structures and vocabulary. If the students are using the Exam Trainer interactive ebook, they can this activity is always a record activity. So if your students are doing it for homework, for example, they can record themselves, they can download it, they could do it again, do their best version and download it and send it to you as the teacher for feedback, if that's the way that you want to do it. So there's that option. We also include some tips which focus on some of the trickier, more important areas to improve performance. The final section for each part is a full-length authentic exam task. So students have the opportunity to put into practice all the strategies and skills that they've learnt. And they can either do that for homework. If you're using the Exam Trainer in class, you might want to do it in class under timed conditions. There are lots of ways that you can ask students to complete that or feedback in class. So following all of the Test Teach Test, you can then give the students the complete practice test, which obviously you can either chop up and give part by part or give us a full practice test to check people's readiness for the exam. So we've been through in quite a lot of detail now all of the different parts of the material. We've looked at the two core components for the short course, for the medium or the longer course. We've looked at the teacher components and the digital resources. And my aim now is to talk you through how we use those different building blocks to create a course for specific course lengths. So we've talked about how we can build the course for 30 to 100 hours. And each of our courses is created with 4 building blocks. Block 1 is choosing the correct core components for your course length. Block 2 is understanding which of those sections you're going to be using in class. And block 3 is looking at which sections from those components you'll be using for homework. And block 4 is understanding which of those digital resources you'll use for the specific needs of your group. So whether you've got an exam focused group at 30 hours, you're going to be revising language and consolidating at 50 hours, building that language at 80, or really doing one of those more extensive courses to level up your students at around 100 hours or more, your course has got 4 building blocks. And I'm going to talk you through now which of those building blocks we recommend and how you can customize those building blocks for each course. So block 1, choosing your core component. If you're doing a short course, your block 1 is the Exam Trainer. If you are doing a medium course, you're using the course book. And if you're doing a longer course, you're going to be using both components. So that's block 1, your core component. Block 2, this is looking at the sections that you'll be using in class. If you're doing a short course, we'd recommend you use the Test and Teach sections from the Exam Trainer. If you're doing a medium length course using the course book, use the main units, simple. If you're doing a longer course, you'd be using the whole book, main units and the different files. If you're doing the longest course, you'd be using both books to create sufficient material to use in class and provide for homework. Block 3, looking specifically at homework. If you're doing a short course, we'd suggest using the final test sections. Once you've given all the input in class, set the test sections for homework. If you're doing a medium length course, we'd suggest using the exam boosts, the grammar and vocabulary file activities for homework. For a longer course, you'd be using those exam trainer page references and setting work from that component. And for the longer course, you'd be using the exam trainer, the sections that you weren't using in class. Finally, looking at the specific digital resources you'd be using to focus on the specific needs of your class. So if you want to build exam awareness, you'd be using those about the exam videos. Now, we have a video which looks at each paper, gives an introduction and each part. If you want to give your students some insights into the exam, we have a speaking test video with examiner commentary, so they can see how it works in practice. And also you can share with the students the speaking and writing success criteria, so they know how they're going to be marked. If you want to consolidate or recycle, we've got photocopiables, we've got 2 grammar and 2 vocabulary per unit. If you want to build language, present it, we've got our editable grammar presentations, which provide a presentation by unit, walk your students through step by step. If you want to identify areas to improve, we've got our diagnostic test you can use at the beginning of the course, or our unit tests to check what people are retaining unit by unit. Progress tests every 2 units, which are language and skills. Checking exam readiness by using our 2 complete practice exams. And finally, if you want to just give a change of pace or set a quick homework, we've got our grammar activities on the app. So now we're going to have a look at the steps that you go through when you're thinking about your own situation, your own class context. So first, you identify your course length, and then you customize the building blocks, thinking about the things that I've just been describing. So if you've got a super intensive exam-focused short course, block 1 is the exam trainer. You're using the test and teach sections in class. You're using the final test sections for homework. And then quite possibly you'll be building some exam awareness. You might want a little rest from presenting the different parts of the exam, and you might let our lady in our videos present for you to give everybody a little bit of a change of pace. We've also got our speaking test videos, which really just help students get a really good feel for how what they'll need to do in the speaking test. And to pick up any difficulties with grammar, which invariably there will be on those short courses, we've got the grammar presentations to support you there and the grammar practice activities on the app. In our teachers' resources, we give you a little walkthrough of how this works. So we tell you which blocks to use. We give you an example teaching scenario, and we walk you through a lesson so you can see how it works in practice. And we give you some ideas about what you could set if you want to flip the classroom, if you want to do something before class. If you find that you've got less time, how you can substitute activities. What you can do if you need something extra or a change of pace. Give you some suggestions on trying something different that you might not have thought of, and also ideas for quick homework. We also provide you with what we call our course planner. So each of the different course lengths has an editable course planner. The idea with this is that we show you, we've populated lesson by lesson, all of the resources for the different blocks. We've customized it for you, provided you a model. And you can do with this what you will. You can take a look, see if it fits your context. And if you want to adapt it, you can transfer the information into different sections and make it true for you. If you find that you didn't complete something, you can add it onto the next lesson, and you have your own planner for your course. Moving on to our next course length. So here we choose our course length, we customize our building blocks, and this is for the semi-intensive. So this is for the exam focus, but with language revision at around 50 hours. Here we recommend using the course book. What we find is teachers at this length often find they have to skip things And it's very unsatisfactory if you have to cut a book short, because then you feel like you've not covered something. So with our 8 units, we've made sure that at around this course length, you can cover all the course material and then use the main lessons in class. So you cover all of the parts multiple times. You cover all the structures that you need. And you also can set for homework some of that grammar and vocabulary, an extra exam boost, and they can do that to consolidate at home. Finally, again, you're going to be doing lots of consolidating at this level, using the copyables, picking up any weaknesses with the grammar presentations, and keeping an eye on people's progress by using the test package. And once again, we show you how to do this. We've given you a walkthrough of how this works at 50 hours, giving you an example lesson, giving you the tools on how you might adapt it, and providing you with your own course planner for this length, showing you everything that's available for you at this number of hours. At the third length, again, same steps, choose that course length, customize your blocks, and now we're moving up to 80 hours. Here, we recommend that you use both books. The reason for this is that you'll want to use the whole course book in class. Students will you'll probably be wanting to give a little bit more focus to the grammar and to the language and using this practice in class. For block 3, we'd be recommending using the exam trainer page references at the bottom of the course book, directing the students to the exam trainer for homework. And finally, all of those wraparound resources that I've been describing so far. Again, we walk you through a lesson. We show you how it works, provide you with the ways that you can adapt the course at this length, and also give you your own 80 hours course planner, populating it with everything that you need for you to adapt at your leisure. Our final course length at 100 hours using both course books. So in class, you'll be wanting to go into a bit more depth, covering each part a little bit more slowly, giving people a little bit more time to work through the material. So we suggest using the exam trainer as well. If students are open-minded, and if you are as well, you might want to try using the initial test section in the exam trainer as a little kickoff to each exam part. It's quite a nice way to introduce students to the exam part before you pick up all of the detail in the course book and follow up with the teach sections from the exam trainer later on. For homework, you'll be using those exam trainer page references and picking up the parts of the material that you haven't covered in class. And again, using all of those wraparound courses, resources to supplement and deal with any specific class needs. And we give you, again, a little walkthrough in our teacher's book. And we also have this available on the Pearson English portal as well to download, walking you through a lesson, telling you why we do it in this way, why we suggest it, how you can adapt it, and then give you the tools to be able to adapt it for your specific course length using our course planner. Okay, so I've been through all of the building blocks. I've shown you how you customize those. And now I'm going to give you a couple of kind of real world examples, if you like, give you some examples of the thought process you might be using, thinking about your own specific courses. So one of the examples we've got here is a 50-hour course. We've got some students who are really confident speakers, but have got some quite weak writing skills. So we need to think about which of those building blocks we're going to choose in order to meet the needs of this group and this course length. So first of all, we're going to be looking at the block 1, which is the course book. The students have got a long enough course to be able to use this component, and we'll need that revision, that language consolidation throughout. You'll be wanting to focus on the main lessons, looking at each of the exam parts, but specifically giving some really good focus on the writing, the process writing. and looking at using the writing file in the back of the book in lots of detail, really looking at what the key features are for each of the different task types, giving them some specific exam help, and also looking very carefully at the useful language that we've supplied to help them with some chunks of language to transfer each time they approach the different writing tasks and text genres. For homework, you'll be giving them the exam boosts, particularly the exam boosts for the writing sections, showing them how to improve their structures using the grammar file and building their vocabulary, useful obviously for all parts of the exam. And finally, you'll be wanting to pay particular attention to about the exam videos, the writing. They can do that in class or at home. Supply them with the writing success criteria so they're equipped with all of the tools that they need and know what they've got to do to achieve particular bands. And also you can give them some extra practice using the writing sections in the progress tests as well, focusing on looking at giving some really valuable feedback, either teacher-led or with their partner, and working on how they can improve those answers. So that's an example for 50 hours. Moving on now to an example for 30 hours. So this can be quite often the case, a really keen, intensive class. They want even more tests for some reason, but they also want a change of pace because they're working really hard. And of course, they need some occasional grammar input to pick up any of those areas of weakness that you identify as they're moving through the course. So which of the different blocks are we going to be using and customizing? So for block 1, we know that for a short course, we're focusing on the exam trainer. Block 2, we're going to be looking at the test and the teach sections. Block 3, we're going to be looking at the final test sections. And to give them what they really want and what they need, we'll be looking at about the exam videos, providing them with the success criteria, giving them the grammar presentations and picking up those weak areas, as well as setting them the grammar practice activities on the app. What we've also done is in that course planner that I showed you, we've identified which of the photocopyables you can use lesson by lesson. So we've linked these to the exam trainer to pick up any of the language areas that have been covered, but also to pick up the different exam parts. So you've got the whole range of the photocopyables to recycle and to give a little bit of a change of pace and provide a few more communicative activities as well. We've also got the test package. So it's quite useful to set things like the diagnostic test at the beginning of any course. And then you've got that area that you know which areas of language to focus on, and you can add those in throughout the course. Our final example today is the 90-hour course. Obviously, students get really fatigued as they go through these long courses. Often they've got more hours per week or longer lessons. So being kind of heads down in the book can get very boring for them. And we find a bit of a lack of engagement or motivation, one could say. So let's have a look about how we can deal with that. We'll be giving them both the course book and the exam trainer. They'll be doing the course book and some of the test and teach sections in class to help revise and consolidate and really build those skills. We'll be looking at setting them the exam trainer sections for homework that haven't been used in class, and also to provide them with that heads up, the interaction, the communication. We've got the range of copyables, the videos and the grammar presentations, which take the presentation out of the book and onto the screen if you're doing an online class, or onto the whiteboard if you're in the classroom. So that's my very detailed look at using our formula building blocks to cater for all those different teaching and learning scenarios that we've discussed today. I hope that you've found one that resonates for your context. So that's me for today. We've learnt, I think, in quite a lot of detail, all about all of our building blocks. I hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions, please add them into the chat now whilst we've got 3 or 4 minutes to go. If you've enjoyed today, please, you'll probably enjoy even more experiencing our flexible formula for exams with Lindsay and Billy. They'll be running those sessions over the course of the next few weeks. Please try and join those if you can. And then moving on from that towards the end of May, Lindsay will be showing you how to create flexible lessons, how to pivot a little bit in the classroom, understanding the material and creating that perfect formula for exam success at the end of May. So that's everything from me today. Check out our website if you want to read a little bit more. If anyone's got any questions today, I shall endeavour to look through any questions that have been asked. We've got a question here. Okay, so formula is specifically for the Cambridge exams. Often the Cambridge exams are very similar to some local exams. So depending on the country that you're in, there'll be a lot of similarity. So quite often our exam books are used not just for the Cambridge exams, but also to look at the similar task types that the local exams pick up. All components are available now to buy. So all of our print components are available. All of our B2 first digital components are available now. All of our B1 preliminary components are available next week. And all of our C1 digital components are available at the beginning of May. So get your books now. Thank you very much for your thanks. If you've got any more questions, don't be afraid. Please do ask any questions in the last couple of minutes. Thanks for all your positive comments. That's great. Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Any other questions before we disappear today? Don't be afraid to ask. I'll probably know the answer. There's a question here about whether the course is PEP based, so that's Pearson English Portal, or as described, good old MEL, My English Lab. This is Pearson English Portal. We've got everything on the Pearson English Portal for this course. There's a question about the diagnostic test here. A diagnostic test is not a placement test. It is to, as you would suspect, diagnose what students need to prepare for that level. You might find that if they take a diagnostic test and they're scoring really low, that they might want to go to the previous level if there is one, or if they're scoring really high, then you might want to bump them up to the next one. So it's that kind of judgment. We don't have an A2 key level available, I'm afraid. We start at B1 currently for launch. And the books were all created over the course of the last 12 months. So pretty up to date. I think you'll find that when you have a look through. I hope you do. Any more questions that I haven't answered? I think I've answered everything. So I think that one more question actually before we go. Formula is for teens and young adults. We recommend it for 14 plus. The material is aspirational for younger teens, but it's got a broad level of appeal for young adults and for our know-it-all teens of today. And I think that's it. So thanks very much for joining me today. It's been very nice to have you all on. I shall wish you a very happy Friday, Have a great day. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy your sample pack, and that leads to a lot of enjoyment with formula. Best of luck, everybody. Thanks very much indeed.